We've been conditioned to believe that addiction begins with a substance, that addicts are selfish, self-centered, narcissistic, sick, ill, morally bankrupt, and would burn the world down to scratch that itch. I don't believe any of it. I believe addiction begins with a story, but it's not the story we've been told, one of powerless and insanity. It's a story of pain, fear, isolation, and meaninglessness. A story that says we're not enough. A story that says we'll never change. A story that convinces us that our suffering defines who we are and that there's no way out, except by the disassociation that we outsource to addiction. Addiction is not our identity, and it's not our fate. That's the heart of the first step of my upcoming book that redefines and reimagines a new and empowering 12 steps to liberation from addiction. Step 1 says we acknowledge we have power over addiction and we are aware we have unwittingly bound ourselves to it. Therefore, we accept the responsibility to mindfully enter the path toward liberation. For years, many of us have been taught that the first step toward recovery is admitting that we are powerless. For those who experience the constant cycle of addiction, this idea sounds true, but the reality is something completely different. We are powerful. We are whole. And we get to define who we are. When you believe that you are powerless to change, then addiction becomes infused in your identity. When you say, I am an addict or I am an alcoholic, your entire sense of self begins orbiting around the very thing you're trying to escape. Identity shapes behavior. We naturally act in ways that reinforce who we believe we are. If I believe I'm a runner, I run. If I believe I'm a teacher, I teach. If I believe I'm incapable of change, my brain begins looking for evidence that confirms that belief. That's why liberation from addiction isn't about changing behavior. It's about understanding our ever-changing and malleable identity. The first step is about reclaiming our humanity, our power, and our sense of self. Instead of asking, how do I stop drinking? Or how do I stop using? Or how do I stop this behavior? We ask a deeper question. Who am I beneath the addiction? That question can be terrifying because many of us, addiction has occupied so much space that we don't know who we are without it. It's been our coping mechanism, our social life, our comfort, our escape, sometimes even our purpose. Removing addiction can feel like removing part of ourselves. It feels risky, dangerous, and our brains convince us that without addiction we lose ourselves and our very lives. We're not losing ourselves. We're uncovering ourselves. We're not losing our lives. We're revealing them. Think about a forest after a wildfire. At first glance, everything looks destroyed. The trees are blackened. The ground is covered in ash. It feels like life has disappeared. But beneath the surface, something remarkable is happening. Seeds that could never have opened without intense heat begin to grow. New life emerges because the fire revealed possibilities that had been buried all along. Liberation from addiction is much the same. The fire of addiction has caused real damage. We shouldn't minimize that. Relationships have been fractured. Trust has been broken. Dreams have been postponed. Pain is real. But pain does not have the final word. Because beneath the ashes is a person who has never stopped being worthy of love, dignity, purpose, and growth. Step 1 is the decision to believe that person still exists, and that person has the power to create a meaningful life. Not because we've earned it, not because we've proven ourselves worthy of healing, but because our value was never determined by our addiction in the first place. As a therapist, I've watched people transform when they stop seeing the path to healing as punishment and loss and start seeing it as liberation. Their motivation changes, their relationships change, their future changes, the trajectory of their lives change. I've seen many people step out in courage to walk this path because they no longer are trying to become someone worthy. They're remembering the person who was always there underneath the shame. This path isn't the road to sobriety. It's the road to ourselves, free, joyful, and connected. And every meaningful journey begins with a single step. Step one is simply this: we are more powerful than our addiction. Let me say that again. We are more powerful than our addiction. Not because this path is easy, not because we've already succeeded, but because our authentic identity has always been larger than the behaviors that have tried to define us. If that message resonates with you, I invite you to stay with me through this journey. In the next video, we'll be exploring the power of connection, community, and the importance of a therapeutic relationship. Until then, please remember, you are more powerful than your addiction. Thank you.